This is an episode brought to you by myself, Jean-Claude, aka JC, and Christina, aka Tina, with a slightly shorter form. We hope you enjoy it.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Mindshack, episode 3 on Edtech in Africa. My name is Christina and I'm joined by
Jean-Claude from South Africa.
So Mindshack is a Gen Z podcast that focuses on discussing societal issues, entrepreneurial leadership, and borders on topics in psychology for Africans. Please do check us out on all relevant social media at Mindshack, MIND_SHACK_. Specifically Instagram, where you'll be getting the most up-to-date updates from our podcast, and you can find us on all podcast platforms. The topic, like I mentioned before, is Edtech in Africa. Let me first, describe what Edtech is, just to not assume everybody knows what it is. So it's educational technology, which is a combined use of computer hardware, software, and educational theory and practice to facilitate learning. So it's really just education plus technology, kind of in the name. Before we even get to this topic, why do you even take an interest in EdTech? Like, what is it about EdTech that you like?
I stumbled into it and then realized that I actually kind of like it. So the reason I started to like it was mostly, I think I can equate it to, it felt like being in education, and in particular, it felt like a place of like real importance, just in general. A place where you can impact that, as I've now gone through university, also realize that is probably a really lasting impact. So yeah, I find it's a little beyond me. The work that I do there is going towards a cause, and it's going towards, in my case, I did early childhood development. It's going towards developing kids in their formative years, and then obviously setting up their foundation for life, which is highly important.
A little context for listeners, JC is working with a company that is in EdTech, so that's what he means by his work. If I was to answer the same question, I would definitely say that EdTech is very important in today's world because it ensures that all kids have very up-to-date information. I think using technology, there'll be better access of education. It's not just the outdated outdated information that's in textbooks. It's like what's very recent. I think that's a benefit of EdTech. And also the fact that, you don't necessarily have to go to school. I do think in Africa currently, that is one of the issues that people face, is that not everybody has access to school. So I know technology is expensive, but I think government should really take it seriously, because that'd be a really great way for everyone to access education, not just people who are near schools.
Yeah, and think about it, like it's literally just going into education in a way that's using 21st century means to teaching people and stepping out of conventional ways of teaching people, which we've kind of come to learn has issues. Sitting in a class with like 60 plus people, and you're like right at the back, 3 people besides are just disturbing, and you can't really hear what the teacher's saying. Like there must have had to be other ways to do it. So EdTech starts to think in that direction, like how can we evolve and better a way an individual learns.
So actually, I did find that there are a few EdTech companies that work with the MasterCard Foundation that are actually based in Africa and have a similar perspective to us. Like, for example, there's the Genius Priority in Rwanda, which is an educational platform where students use computers to perform laboratory experiments. So like, how dope is that? Especially kids that don't have access to that equipment because it is quite expensive. I would know there was a time I broke one in science, and yeah, they're not cheap. But anyway, there's also another company, called Ineza Education in Kenya, which provides learning and revision materials via SMS. So look at that brilliance. You see what I mean? They're very aware that people don't have access to things like laptops, which is so expensive. So they use text message.
Yeah, and Ineza Education is it's like a pretty they're like leading the way when it comes to trying to people that don't have the means.
So we were actually reading on one of our former, can we even call him a classmate, but just a former ALU student, Arinze's article, which is on
Medium.com.
Yes, medium.com, where he's basically talking about edutech in Africa, and he was interviewing one of his classmates called Hassan, and they brought to light quite a few interesting things. Particularly for me, I found it very interesting how they were saying that although there are the initiatives that we mentioned earlier about, like in Neza and Kenya, there still isn't enough attention on edtech in Africa, especially considering that we are currently the youngest continent. At least majority of the continent is below the age of, I believe, 25. But yeah, it's that there's not enough attention in edtech, and we could actually be jeopardizing a huge opportunity to educate so many Africans just because people haven't yet taken it seriously. But what do you think about that?
There are challenges, right? And I think of that like part of the problem is the labor force that exists. Yeah, the labor force, a lot needs to go, and a lot is being done in some countries, going to training teachers in order for them to impart effectively the knowledge they want to on students. Other challenges would also be the old systems of teaching and culture in general. So it's gatekeepers that need to adopt education in a new style that are somewhat holding it back. So these old systems of sitting in a massive class and one teacher, they need to fall away. Then obviously, if you're going to branch off like into other challenges, there's corruption as well. Money that's supposed to be going towards the education sector that's just being filtered out into other people's bank accounts, which is sad. But yeah, it's kind of somewhat the reality we live in. So when I think of all those challenges, I don't want to make it a chat that's just got a little bit of a sad demeanor. I have a question for you, Christina. If you can think of one challenge that that if you could take away, would allow you to make a great impact in education through tech.
Probably access to tech would be probably I think the greatest challenge, because you can't really have edtech without the technology, but that also stems from how people view it, like you did mention. But on the brighter side, I was just looking at this COVID situation, which is also a very sad situation. But I think this situation has actually brought to light the importance of edtech now that a lot of people, their education has literally come to a stop because they can't go to school. So I'm hoping this situation has kind of, given that extra push to persuade investors and governments to take edtech seriously. So now that they have, better perspectives on edtech, that will most likely increase funding and then better access. Similar to you, it's probably just perspective of our leaders. Because, trying to choose which problem is more important than the other is quite difficult for a government. But I think now that they've seen that literally the youth are not learning, some people are missing months of school because they don't have access to their learning materials. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, you've answered it definitely. Well, in my case, I feel I have a good positive outlook to edtech in Africa, particularly because I am in a schooling model that is very 21st century encompassed, sort of. Like there's a lot of incorporation of using technology and online learning, which is really great. We do this at African Leadership University. And so, yeah, I've seen firsthand, I feel it firsthand, the impact of learning through online technology. And then beyond that, like in a time like this, like we're in a pandemic, we're forced to be home. Simply put, we can't go to a classroom. So innovations like Coursera, they're making a great, they're now really building towards they're making a cause, like they're creating value towards a cause. People are not able to leave their houses, and so they're bringing the learning into their homes. Edtech, it's hard to see the negative in it. A big thing there, the way I think of is the solutions are really important on a cost-effective basis, as well as like how effectively to tap into the population demographic, like with us again being young. So you're essentially trying to also create solutions that can empower us or steer our potential best.
Hi there, listener. Thank you. We just thought we would take a short break to appreciate you. Your feedback in our DMs and in the various comment sections on social media has been the fuel to our podcast so far as we work to improve. So I want to urge you to continue to give us feedback as we slowly work to incorporate it and improve. We hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
I think I agree with what you're saying. Definitely that EdTech is very, very useful. I've seen it myself. Like you mentioned, we were in school, we were evacuated literally overnight. And, we literally took the classroom with us, and we carried on like nothing really changed because the setup was so mobile. So that's something that I think is brilliant about EduTech. But I do think that the learning environment is very important. I do think having learning materials is very useful, and even the videos that we have access to at ALU are so useful. You can literally teach yourself. That's one of the selling points of the school, is that personalized learning. But just being in a classroom, I can't lie, that's something that I do think may take away from EdTech. Although you can do EdTech in a classroom, but I'm just saying that mobility isn't always a great thing, because just being in that learning environment is very important for me, and I didn't realize that till this COVID situation. So that's the only downside, is that although I have access to all the materials, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm the most productive. But that's just a me thing, that's like a privilege problem. Otherwise, I think it's so great that you can actually also learn at your own time. The fact that we were all dispersed all over Africa, and we were still working, in teams because we all had access to the same materials. That was brilliant. So I think for me, the main thing that I really love about EdTech is just how mobile learning becomes.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said. You said something that kind of made me think of obviously there's so many different approaches. Just in general, like when you think of Africa, Africa is known for being highly, highly innovative. We're essentially in a context and continent where we're exploring our creativity, partly because we're a third world continent where the first world has done a lot of things before us, and that might be where a lot of the innovation is coming from. I feel as though the creativity and EdTech is where the power is, right? Like in terms of what we can do.
If you were to fund an EdTech company today, what kind of company would it be? Like, what would it be focusing on?
To be honest, because Africa needs to overcome its challenges and it needs to soar. And the thing that comes to mind for me that's going to make a lasting impact is early childhood. Because of those, it's called the first 1,000 days. First 1,000 days are critical for a child. And we've seen in African countries already, I don't know, maybe it's just me, Tina, you'll let me know, but I feel like in African countries where they're already pushing a lot of ECT, early childhood learning, from like basically teaching children from like 3 years old, we're already feeling some of the results of that now. So even in our country, we're in a good place and system environment to see this. Like Nigeria actually has a lot that they're doing in ECD. A lot of students, they start from ridiculous. And these are some of the brightest students we have on our campus that's literally filled with diversity of Africa. So yeah, I think it'll be a company in ECD doing some kind of technology connection to children that are very, very young.
I think that's a very, very strong case that you have. I think though, if they could, my idea is also that they should invest in EdTech for university actually, because I feel that a lot of people don't have access to university because of the sheer cost of it. And I just feel like edtech is a lot more affordable in the long run than full-on university for uni students in Africa. I just kind of feel like that's the barrier for people becoming professionals in their field. So they're not able to go to uni, but they do finish high school. So that's just how I think. But like you said, when you're talking about early years, I'm like, actually, it makes more sense. You'd rather educate people really well when they're young.
I'll add on to that point, like I think you're quite right, because in the first world, that's it's really expensive, but that's part of now what has become a problem for them with student loans, and then the connection of student loans to the economy and how much damage that's doing to the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a way we can innovatively use technology to make education more reachable for people that are going at university level. Yeah, I definitely agree. And there's all these approaches. The approach really matters, and the skills really matter. So
true.
Those would be considerations too about the type of companies and innovations. You gotta have the right team, individuals that complement each other, and you can see a real far distance. So yeah, I agree. I think education is powerful. We know this. As a community, I think it's quite important for us to see people that are within the edtech community and try to support them in some way. You might not have the money, but you could know someone that could help connect that edtech business to an opportunity that can propel that business. So whenever you think edtech and you know someone within the edtech space, really try to think of ways you can help with.
Edtech is very important, and I don't think we should have waited for a crisis to tell us that edtech is important. I am grateful though that we can see the effects of edtech, those countries that did invest in it, how they're doing, and also those countries that didn't. So I definitely think moving forward, if you do know somebody who's trying to start something in edtech or who has an edtech company, please do encourage them or link them to any resources or connections that you have to help them further their mission. So thank you guys for listening to this episode. Please do check out our social media. I will repeat, it's at Mindshack, MIND_SHACK_. So you can get any updates for our future episodes or any other information we would love for you guys to know. And other than that, again, thanks for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this conversation and learned something new in edtech. And catch us next week. See ya.
Boom. Cheers.